All right, 1 minute early, we'll call this meeting of the Economic Development Authority and the Advisory Board together. Eric, if you want to come on up, you're welcome to. First, let's do roll call. We do have the President, Briggs, is missing. He is on vacation. Is there anyone from the audience that wants to address the EDA at this time? Mr. McCarthy?
I'll do that first.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
All right, whenever you decide.
Okay, we'll do it at the end if that works for you. The consent agenda, we have the EDA and Advisory Board joint meeting minutes of March 6th. Be appropriate for a motion to accept.
I move.
Do you have a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Financial reports from February 28th. We have total assets of $312,440.40. Would the treasurer so move?
Well, I'll move it, and I think I pointed out once before that we have good order. Yeah.
That's a motion to accept?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the financials?
Opting, there are no accounts payable, but
I'll make that. Yeah, let me add that. Just to be
Excellent.
Just to be efficiency. Yeah.
Okay. Do we have a second that?
yes.
All right. Any other discussion? All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right. The next is to discuss the future direction of the Advisory Board and appointments to the International Falls EDA Advisory Board. Eric, I don't know if you've seen our last meeting on KCC TV or if you've heard what the conversation is, but we're having a hard time getting people onto the advisory board, and we're wondering what the advisory board would like to do. How do you see the advisory board moving forward?
Well, I have a couple of thoughts, and that's all they are, so just take them as such. I still see an importance in the advisory board for two main reasons. It's a perfect place for, as issues arrive with the EDA, to pass that stuff to the advisory board to discuss it, vet concerns, things like that, and come back and advise the EDA. Now, we don't really have anything in the hopper right now, or haven't had anything put to us to advise on, but I see it as important to be there. And I also see it as a great conduit between the city EDA and the Voyage Forward efforts that are going on. And more specifically the Destiny drivers. And just so both hands know what the other hand is doing, and so we don't have any duplicative efforts that are going on out there. I would recommend that if the advisory board does continue to go forward, and I know this is tough to get folks that want to volunteer, but any new appointees would be willing to roll up their sleeves and actually do some work, because with our limited resources, it really needs to be a working board. For example, and we talked about this, is if the EDA wants to come up with a policy for purchasing in the multimodal district. I know we spoke about this, and I could see that something as that advisory board, sit down, work out, hammer out a document, and present that to the EDA for adoption or not. And that's just one example. And I'm sure the EDA can come up with some other items that need to be worked on or you'd want folks to work on. Those are just my thoughts. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Now, I've sat in on these, on the advisory board meetings for a better part of a year and a half. And one of the things that had been talked about over and over again was the strategic action plan. We talked about how we're going to institute that, how to put it together. And I think that that's one of the things that fell by the wayside because we were in this transition of, is the advisory board a working group or an advising group? And I think that's something we need to hammer out moving forward of what that advisory board is. Are they going to advise? Are they going to roll up your sleeves like you had said? The other conversation that I think has came out of the advisory board meetings is the group that's there now wants to do something. And it seems like downtown has been the focus of what they'd like to do. So do you see a strategy of anything that the advisory board would want to do in that aspect?
I don't think we've had time to really hash that out yet. I think you're hitting on a very important point, and let's just be real frank, is that with the changes in the EDA over the last couple of years, some of the members on the advisory board were not real thrilled about that. And I think most of those folks have put in their resignations and have gone. So there was some friction there as far to what you speak of it as an advisory or a working group. And again, I'll go back to my third point is that, and I think if you put it out there to the public that way, is that it is a working group and we are going to be working on things to better downtown, if you will, or the strategic action plan. You might get a different pool of folks that would want to serve on it.
Mr. President, I think that part of the EDA is community development, and that is under the umbrella. And community development is, you know, if you look at the downtown area, there could be an effort to beautify that area in line with the Voyage Forward effort. So there is work to do, and I think that it's the kind of goals that are very concrete and can be reached in a relatively short duration, which would fit well for a working committee where you don't really have. I mean, I've been on working committees, and really there always has to be somebody who's willing to do the organization of that group, you know. And I don't know if that falls to the president or the vice president to take that under their wing so that you have your minutes, you have your agenda, you have somebody calling the meetings, etc.
And you bring up a good point that I hadn't really thought about, but when I first got on the EDA advisory board, it really was a board that kind of hashed out ideas that came forward, and that could be done the same way with revitalizing downtown or anything like that.
The more hands we have on deck regarding that, the better. And the other thing I think you touched on, Vice President Droba, is that we need, I mean, the EDA is an authority. There are things we can do. We can actually levy a tax for the EDA if we choose. There are things that the EDA, future EDAs may do. But we are in the dark about what we might do unless we have an ongoing dialogue with, especially, everybody's important, but when you're talking about projects, it's often the business community. And so I think it's important that we have this advisory group to really help guide and direct the EDA. We cannot foresee at this point in our governance what we might need down the road. I think it's folly to dismantle the organizational structure we have in place at a time where we have people now that are starting to come to the plate due to the Voyage Forward effort. And, you know, I think the EDA, you know, KEDA's there, but they are not going to undertake community development for International Falls, I can tell you that. It's not going to happen. So if we're going to have that kind of effort, we're going to need the EDA, and I think we're going to need an advisory board to do it right.
Anyone else have questions or comments?
Well, Mr. Chair, I would ask how having this EDA being active fits with the recommendation of the consultant in having one entity to be the focus for economic development. If we're talking about community development, that can be done under the city council, and we could have a advisory board there. I just really wonder about, and the same with the strategic action plan. If we need to have one through the city council, we can certainly put that together. But in trying to have a good working relationship between the city and the county, and with the Couchiching Economic Development Authority, why do we need to have this Economic Development Authority active with an advisory board? And I guess I would just say, you know, I don't have a problem. We don't need to dismantle, but certainly maybe we can meet twice a year and see if there's something, or at the call of the chair, if there's something that comes forth that needs to be done. But if it's community development, I would certainly recommend that we do it under the city council.
The EDA has special authority that's different from the city council. There are things that the EDA can do that the city council cannot do. And therefore, there is a role. We have more flexibility in negotiating with developers. We can do borrowing where we don't need a referendum. We can also levy a tax. Now, are we going to make use of any of those tools? Not without a good project and not without planning and foresight. However, future EDAs may. And again, it isn't that you sit quietly by and something happens. You need to have ongoing discussion, an iterative process between the business community and the EDA. And so I think it's folly to really tear this down. I think we need to keep trying. Now, what concerns me is that we have it doesn't seem that we've lost some momentum, probably due to the fact that we don't have a staff person. And again, a working committee does need someone who's willing to step forward and do that organizational month-to-month work. The problem I see is that we don't have a lot of people knocking on the door here to serve on the IFEDA Advisory Committee. If we don't have people, we don't have an IFEDA Advisory Committee. So that is really the nut to the question. Do we have the momentum and the spirit in the community? Do you think, Eric? Because do you think we can fill out this committee
Councilors, I would frame it again, as I spoke earlier, is that if it was presented as a working committee,
okay,
that actually we could bring ideas to, I think you would have interest for it. You know, if we bottled it up a little bit different.
And that seems to me kind of what the mayor had done with the Donahue Advisory Board, set out goals and conditions of what he was looking for to form that committee, and then they came through, they did that job and presented it to the council. Maybe that's what we need to look at in the advisory board. We give the direction of this is what we're asking for, and let you guys do it at your leisure, your timeline, and bring it back. You know, maybe that's the route, is project-based for the advisory board.
And if I could,
please,
Mr. Counselor, is that we serve at the pleasure of the EDA, and frankly, we haven't had a heck of a lot of direction lately. So, I mean, you know me. Give me something to do and I'll get her done, you know. And I think that's the folks that we have sitting on the advisory board now.
And in all honesty, that's how I feel too. From meeting with the advisory board, it has gotten small. I believe we're at three members that meet physically in this room and one over the phone. And I think that's the core group that we have, but they are giving it every month, every meeting, and they are able to they want to work on projects. They've been very clear that they want to work on projects. So my opinion would be to continue with the EDA Advisory Board at the minimum through this calendar year and see what work they're willing to put in if we give them direction of what we're asking for as an EDA. But we can't just say, be an advisory board, figure it out. I think we have to ask them whether it's the strategic action plan, whether it's what goals they can work with the Destiny drivers to fix something in our community, or and it was brought up just because of the projects that we've had in the multimodal area, or what is the criteria for someone to buy the property there? Is everything apples to apples? Is everything going to be based off of prior purchases, or how are we going to work with that? So I think personally we should leave the advisory board the way it is. Try to get more people knowing that it's a working group, and give them a project and see what we get out of it. Please.
I guess I would be concerned about having the citizens not understanding because it does not have any special powers. It serves with approval of the City Council. I believe that's how the statute reads. Well, it does have flexibility on taxing. It's because it can circumvent the city charter, which calls for a vote by the citizens if you're going to levy a tax. And that's the only real flexibility it has, is that it can take and not require a vote by the citizens if we're going to have a special tax.
And also borrow without a referendum.
I think you ask for approval from the citizens for those kind of things.
Well, most cities have an EDA and they use them actively. I think that I agree with Councillor Droba, Vice President Droba in this case, and that we need to do the hard work at the EDA of ascertaining what is our best projects that we need to look, so we can provide a hand here to the EDA Advisory Board, and so we can get going. So we've never really had that discussion at our level lately as to what we should undertake. And there's a role for the EDA to undertake community development, I see. So I would recommend that we continue with the core group. I would make a motion that we continue with the core group and expand that group as projects demand, and ask that the president or vice president of the EDA act as the organizer of the EDA meeting, EDA advisory meeting, so that minutes get taken, agendas get put out, etc. And
this is the longest motion ever.
okay, and the last part of this motion is that we get at our next meeting we have one agenda item, really, because it'll take some time, and we need to all come prepared to offer what we think is our individual vision that we need to come to consensus on it at the EDA for community development. So, I mean, we can't just have the IFEDA Advisory Board without some direction. So that's an important element to this motion.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to condense your motion to
To be effective, you need the two pieces that support the IFEDA Advisory Board, which is an organizer.
I have your motion as, your motion is to continue the EDA Advisory Board in its current state with the president or vice president presiding or being at the meetings, and at the next meeting, having one single agenda item to discuss a project to have them work.
Thank you. Very good.
Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I would vote against it because I think it's going to send the wrong message to Economic Development Authority that we're trying to get into the economic development, and so we're running a second economic development organization when recommendation by consultants is to have one. Talking about community development, let's do it under the city council, and we can have an advisory board there. Certainly, I would be against having it under.
Just trying to mend that a little bit. You don't think that we could have the conversation at our next KEDA meeting and have the discussion that we're trying to do this for some specific projects in the city limits of International Falls, especially being members of both the city and the county. Obviously, the county is working on projects with the KDA. I'm just trying to make that conversation piece. I mean, obviously, we need to work on our community as a whole as well.
Rainier certainly is moving forward on a number of projects outside of KEDA.
They're not a member of KEDA. We are.
They are represented through their county representatives. I would
Any other discussion? Please.
Well, I would say that, I don't participate. I'm not a member of the KEDA board. I am a member of this board. I'm a member of the city council. I think it's important for the city council and the IFEDA to have discussions about the future of the city apart from KEDA. I'm not participating in KEDA. I feel that my constituents in the West Ward aren't fully represented if I have to go through KEDA to talk about community development in the city of International Falls. This essentially puts a barrier up. It isolates, it silos people. I'm for inclusive leadership. I am for open discussion. I think it's important that we continue the IFEDA and have these community development discussions and keep the power of the EDA intact and keep the discussions going with the business community.
I just want to backtrack a little bit. So you would be okay with this organization if it fell under the city council more so than under the EDA, but the same idea, the same plan?
Why though? What's the difference?
Because then I think it's a focus on community development and not on economic development, and so that we have competing organizations.
We may have an economic development project that isn't endorsed or undertaken by KEDA. It's possible, right? Why would we circumscribe the power of the city council or the EDA? And furthermore, the consultants didn't recommend KEDA, they recommended an entirely new agency. So, I mean, we're not following their recommendation anyway, and by God, they didn't know everything either. So.
All right, well, I think we're any other discussion on this particular item? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 3-1. All right, so the question before us now is, do we want to advertise for new people or do we want to keep the core group? As it stands, we can advertise as a working group. Is that what?
If I could, Councilor,
Yes,
I think
definitely.
that'd be a great idea. Because I think you would get some folks that are actively involved with the Voyage Forward initiative that would show some interest in this, and more hands make for lighter work.
Would that be something in an advertisement that we should put, that we're leaning towards destiny drivers pertaining to the city? That I don't know. I'm open to discussion.
I would wait until after our next EDA meeting to advertise, because we need to formulate a plan. And depending upon what that plan is, will direct our advertising. So I think we're a little premature just advertising this coming week. I think we should wait till our next meeting. I know, I hate to slow things down, but we need to have the discussion at the EDA on what the plan is.
Okay.
And depending upon what that plan is will depend upon who we want to recruit to.
All right, anything else on the advisory board or the appointments at this time, or should we move on in the agenda?
Well, Mr. Chair, I might just say, if I recall correctly, members of the Voyage Forward came to the Couchiching Economic Development Authority and spoke against having advisory boards there.
That is accurate. Anything else on the advisory board appointments or the advisory board? All right, we will move on to the agenda. Thank you, Eric, so much for stopping out.
Welcome.
Thank you, Eric.
We appreciate that.
Thanks, Eric.
All the hard work you did on the housing committee. We did a few things we're continuing to meet, so thank you for that.
All right. The next thing would be to adjourn, but I did say I would take audience at the end of the meeting as well, so I'll open it up to audience at this time.
Good afternoon. I'll try to be very brief here. I have not read the charter for the city or the authority that established the the city's economic development authority. However, the general concept that I've had and I've worked with over a lifetime is that the governmental authorities, such as the city or the county or the town or the township, establish the overall community development here, and economic development becomes a part of that here. What has happened here over a period of time, from my perspective, is with the proliferation of organizations, advocacy, advisory establishments here, you've muddied the waters here. I see nothing wrong about people getting together as a group privately and having discussions, and then coming before the council or before the county and establishing whether it fits within the overall economic plan, rather community plan. These communities up here were established here when there wasn't any governmental association with economic development here. And first of all, in order to have economic development here, you have to have people that have the willingness to put forward the effort in something that they really believe in. And what they believe in has to match with what the wants and needs of the community or group are. Otherwise, you're destined to have a situation where it's very, very difficult to accomplish. Yes, you've done some things, but you look at some of the things that have been accomplished have been done primarily through the impetus of people that have a strong desire and willingness to put forth the ideas and the effort. The most striking one here, although it doesn't relate directly to economics in the way most people look at it, is the way the veteran service officer has worked her once she arrived at the county. Right now, she is servicing active files, 1,500 veterans. There's only estimated to be 13,000 people in the entire county, so it's a percentage above which the normal is. They're coming from outside. In addition to that, there's cost effectiveness in what she's doing here. Not only is she giving and putting forth the effort, helping the individuals get compensation that they're rightfully due, she also is helping them get established in a medical program here that will help reduce the overall cost to the systems. So not only do you have generation of income, you have a cost saving standpoint. So to summarize it, I don't believe that the results of all this activity has produced what each and every one of us wants here. And I could be wrong in this area, but the old way of doing things, of having the city establish a community approach, and then people that are very vitally interested in a certain area of the economy get together. They can have their own discussions and all. Then they come before the governing authority and present it. And if it fits into it, as far as what the elected voters, what the voters have elected the governing bodies to do, then they say yes. In the meantime, you eliminate all this other thing and you establish a much more efficient system to accomplish what each and every one of you, I believe, desires. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. Anybody else want to come from the audience?
We'd just like to echo what Mr. McCarthy said, in that also all of the monies that the EDA has came from the city council. The city transferred some $700,000 from the city funds over to the EDA. So,
thank you. Anything else to come before the EDA this evening? Hearing none, we will adjourn.